A pleasant day, everyone. Today I am going to discuss to you the Bangladesh English. In this discussion, we are going to talk about how the English arrived in Bangladesh based on the three phases presented on the material by Hamid and Hassan in the book Multilingual Class, Another Source. After that, we're going to know the status of English in terms of education and language policies in Bangladesh. We'll also describe the functions of English in terms of education, employment, media and entertainment, politics, NGOs, creative writing, and electronic communication. After that, I will also discuss to you what is code mixing and code switching. So let's start our discussion on how English has arrived in Bangladesh. So how does English arrived in Bangladesh? The history of English in Bangladesh can be divided into three main phases of the political history of the nation, reflecting the changing role and status of English. So the first phase took place during the colonial rule of British to the Indian subcontinent, and this was during 1757 to 1947. But before that, their first encounter happens on 1630s, and this is when English trading factories were set up in Bengal, where English was used as a language of trade, with no other intent of promoting the language and established institution, but to plainly use English as a language of trade. And then within the next century, they started establishing English institution, initially for European, but then later on opens it also for the locals with the aim of spreading Western knowledge, English language, and English literatures. So for the second phase, Pakistan gains independence to India and separated from West and East Pakistan. So to be united linguistically, culturally, and geographically, they constructed a new language, which is the Urdu. But during those time, English serves as a neutral political tool for communication between the two Pakistan and gained its status in their federation. The dominance of English from the British colonization continues in their education, which also maintained social divisions along linguistic lines. So for the third phase, in 1971, there was an internal crisis in Pakistan, resulted in a third war between India and Pakistan, and the secession of East Pakistan. The secession creates the independent state of Bangladesh. This brought an opportunity for Bangladeshi to reflect on language question from a nationalistic point of view. English then became a de facto foreign language in the monolingual Bangladesh. Bangla then replaced English in all important domains, including education, as a symbol of their national identity. English then came under policy favor because of the influence of globalization and privatization of education. Because of this, the public sector started revamping their language policies and give prominence to English. The latest national education policy and the natural curriculum for English consider English as a vehicle for human capital development, required for the nation's competitiveness in a globalized economic environment. So that is how English arrived and developed in Bangladesh. And now let us talk about the status of English in terms of education and language policies in Bangladesh. In the given material, the status of English in their education is yet unnoticed. In fact, The National Education Policy, or the Ministry of Education in Bangladesh, includes chapter on all conceivable forms of education, including non-formal education, women's education, religious and moral education, physical education, and legal education, but does not include or does not dedicate learning in language education. There is an absence of language policy in Bangladesh. However, there is an act which introduces Bangla to be used in government and other institutions except in foreign relations. This act was not fully implemented for more than 2 decades. That is why on 2014, the act is formally re-implemented, which directed the government to take steps to use Bangla in all advertisements, signboards, names, and etc. So this act is also implemented to eradicate the growing use of English and aims to replace it with Bangla, which seems to lose ground in its area despite the implementation of legal protection and policy. So even though they implemented a policy pertaining to use Bangla, it is still not enough to withstand the growing use of English in Bangladesh. That is why the lack of English proficiency in the general population becomes a national concern. And now let us talk about the function of English in terms of education, employment, media and entertainment, politics, NGOs, creative writing, and electronic communication. So now let us first talk about the function of English in the education of Bangladesh. The curricular status of English varies across the streams of education. In the mainstream national curriculum, which caters 80% of the student population, English is taught as a compulsory subject from grade 1 to grade 12. The same time allotment for Bangla. In Bangladesh, they have what they call madrasa education. Madrasa education has multiple systems and it caters 17% of the students' population. One of these stream is called Aliyah Madrasa. Aliyah Madrasa, which is the only stream in madrasa education that is funded and managed by the government. Aliyah Madrasa includes the courses Islam, Arabic, and general subject, including Bangla, English, science, and mathematics. Same as to the mainstream education, English is taught as a compulsory subject from grade 1 to grade 12. So aside from the Aliyah Madrasa, they also have Qumi Madrasa, which is a system of madrasa education which hold the least percentage of the students' population that ranges to 2%. It is a private English medium education where English is dominant because English is used as a language and medium of instruction. Let's head on to the functions of English in the employment of Bangladesh. Certain sectors may require high level of English proficiency and other communication skills. English play a more dominant role in the private sector than in the public sector. One example of an in-demand sector that requires high level of English proficiency is their ready-made garments or RMG. According to the researcher, the language is crucial in key areas of marketing, merchandising, and commercial operations. Even if these skills are not required at the stage of recruitment, the knowledge of English and other foreign languages serves as a vital resource because of the labor migration in Bangladesh. In fact, Bangladesh is the largest supplier of unskilled and semi-skilled labor migrants. Employers fail to recruit people because they do not have adequate skills, including English proficiency. And now let us talk about the function of English in Bangladesh media and entertainment. So the role of English in Bangladesh media and entertainment is modest, meaning moderate. They moderately use or seldom use the language English in their media and entertainment, because this sector uses Bangla to cater to its domestic audience. As we all know that Bangla is their official language, that is why for the audience to understand, they use Bangla. The Hindi also has a significant role in their entertainment because Hindi music is common in public places. The significant role of English in Bangladesh media and entertainment was only to process news from overseas media outlets for local consumption. On 2018, there are 1,242 national and regional newspapers published in the country, and only 85 of them are in English. There is a television channel in Bangladesh, which namely Bangladesh Television, where the English language is restricted. And now let us talk about the function of English in the politics of Bangladesh. Bangla is the language of politics and political expression in Bangladesh. Using language other than Bangla is politically incorrect with serious repercussions. Even major political parties in Bangladesh maintain their official websites in Bangla and English. The current politics of language considers the two languages in zero-sum relationship, and therefore attempts are made to ensure that the promotion of English does not undermine the dignity and official status of Bangla. Even there is no specific policies for English to guide politics and political discourse in the country. So it is because they develop strong linguistic nationalism for their separation in West Pakistan, which limit the usage of English in all important domains, including their politics. And now let us talk about the function of English in non-government organization. So English has the strongest presence in non-government organization in Bangladesh. When we talk about NGOs, it is an organization that is non-dependent to the government, and there are several NGOs in Bangladesh. So meaning this organization is not funded by the government. So in order to raise funds for the organization's functionality, they seek overseas for support, and this is where the English gains its prominence. All major NGOs have their websites in English, and majority of their written communication is in English. Functions of English in their creative writing. Creative writing in English dates back to the 19th century. British Bengal was the provenance of British writing in English, which is the oldest English language literary tradition in the subcontinent. In post-independence, Bangladesh writing in English remains in Kuwait. However, in 1990s, the mushrooming of English medium schools and and increase of English dailies has contributed to its growing vibrancy. The Hay Festival of Literature and Arts in Dhaka attracts Bangladeshi authors writing in English. So in Bangladesh writing in English, there are writers who wrote their pieces originally in English and then translate it to Bangla, while there are also writers who translate their Bangla pieces into English. So for the function of English in electronic communication in Bangladesh, their email communication is characterized in English. SMS constitute another area of significant English use in Bangladesh. So emails are written mainly in English, the same with the SMS mixes Bangla and English, and is often written in Romanized script. They conducted a research in the users of SMS from the students of 300 universities and found out that there are various of features of language such as code switching, local innovation, abbreviations, and rule breaking. Similarly, Facebook posts and messages of Bangladesh reflects creative use of English. And now let us head to the last discussion, which is the code mixing and code switching. So what is code mixing? Code mixing refers to a hybrid word created between the two languages in a bilingual context. So for example, the word Awami League, which means General League, is a combination of Urdu and English, wherein the word Awami is an Urdu word that means generality, is placed next to an English one. So that is the code mixing. And now let us talk about the code switching. So code switching happen when speakers practice alternating between two or more language in a conversation. So that would be all for the Bangladesh English. Thank you for listening to our discussion and have a good day.